Hi there, it's Michelle from CNC Designs. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in New Zealand, and I wanted to show you how to make this beautiful sunflower card. It's a shaker card. It fits that move around in that area, and it also uses a bit of watercoloring with it. Now, this isn't my own idea. I got this from another demonstrator, and I've just changed it up a little bit, which we do. It's called casing, which is copy and share everything, or copy and selectively edit. So it's actually not that difficult, looks quite impressive, but you're just working with a couple different colors. You've got white cardstock and a bit of black cardstock. That's the only colors of cardstock you're using. And you do a bit of embossing and stamping, and then this one I use the watercolor pencils to color it in. Today I'm going to change it up a bit, and I'm going to use the Stampin Blends, which I love to use, and I'm going to do a different background on this card, so it'll be slightly different, but the main concept is the same. So for this card, depending on which style you want, I did the I think this is the portrait view, so it opens upright. It's still only half a piece of cardstock, so it ends up being a A6 size card here in New Zealand, which you start with half of an A4, which is A5, folded in half. You could do it sideways and it folds the other way. The dimensions would be the same. So card base is what you need. Then you need to have a smaller piece, which will be embossed to go behind. So you got your card base, which I recommend use the thick Whisper White. You can use a thinner one for your embossing piece, and then you need an extra piece of white cardstock to stamp on for the flower, and the leaves, which will be cut out. So it can be a bit smaller than this cardstock, and then just a little bit of scrap black for the words, which I will emboss in white. And then I've already gone ahead and die cut a few of the little elements. The dies with this set cut out the sunflower as well as a few other little elements, so I've just gone with the monochrome effect with the black and white. And then you need a bit of plastic window sheet to put in there to make it into a shaker card. You could leave that part off and not have it have any beads inside it. And then whatever you want to put inside your shaker card. Now you can purchase the gems, etc. from Stampin' Up, but I did a class and I didn't have time to get the gems in. So what I've done here, this is actually just a bag of silicone gel, the kind that you get when you buy things that are paper or sometimes in with your shoes, etc. And so this is what you probably have seen in packaging. So, and it says, throw it away, etc. But what you can do is you can color it. So in here I left some of them clear, and the other little colored ones I put in a separate baggie and added a few drops of our refill. I think I might have used the Balmy Blue, I'm not sure, but the color changes slightly, so it doesn't come out to a pure color depending on how your silicone gel looks, because sometimes the gel, when you open it, has turned brown or dark, which means it's absorbed a lot of moisture, and that's why I have the darker ones here. And then I just threw the colored ones back in with the clear ones just to give me that look. So if you're looking for an inexpensive way to create a shaker card, that's a great way to do it. Don't throw these out, keep them for your crafts, and just get some ink refills, another use for the ink refills. So I'm using, for this set, everything I'm using is from the Celebrate Sunflower stamp set and bundle, because it has the dies as well. So the big sunflower, the leaves, and cutting out with the dies and using the words here to stamp it up. So let's get started. Now, the other thing too, I forgot to mention, is I'm using two black inks. I'm using Stazon and I'm using Memento. Now, Memento I'm going to use on the flower and the leaves here because I'm going to color that with blends. And if you're using an alcohol-based marker, you need to have a water-based outline ink. But I'm going to use the Stazon black ink to do the sunflowers that are going to be in the background here, because I'm going to do like a watercolor wash over it. And if you put water on top of a water-based black, it will run. So I need to use a permanent Stazon for that part of the card. So we'll get started with the parts I have done already, and I'm going to change the colors up slightly. So the first thing I want to do is stamp my sunflower. And to get a good inking of the sunflower, because it's such a big stamp, one, I don't have a block big enough to hold that, and two, I just want to get really good coverage. So what I'm going to do here is use my Stamparatus, and I've already placed it so when I stamp it I'll have some room to do the leaves up there. If you're using your Stamparatus, you don't want to stamp too close to the edge because you don't get very good pressure. So you want to make sure whatever you're stamping is slightly off the edge. So this one, because I'm going to color it with my blends, I will use the Memento black ink. I apologize for any shadows. It's daytime here in New Zealand, but we've got a lot of rain, and so I've got my inside lights on, which aren't the best. So ink it up. Always use something under the plastic plate for your Stamparatus to give it decent pressure, so you're not putting pressure right on the hinges. So ink it up. Because this is not our normal ink pad, it's the old classic style, I can give it good pressure and then come over, and I just like to rub. Sorry if the video is going to move. I just like to rub over the inked part. Don't put pressure right in one spot, just rub back and forth, and that gives you nice coverage. If you find that it didn't cover very well, you can then ink up what you need to cover and do it again. If you want it to be darker, like this part looks a little lighter, you can again ink it up and do it darker. Or if you've noticed you've missed a few spots and there's some ink still on the stamp, you can just go back to those spots without re-inking and put more pressure, and that should transfer the ink onto the paper. There, that actually came out a bit darker. So there you go. So there's my sunflower looking lovely. I really love this image. It's gorgeous. And then I want to do my leaves, because these will all be colored with the blends and cut out. So again, I'm going to use the Memento black, and I should have enough room here to get 3 leaves up the top. So good pressure, because I can't see through this, so I can't tell if it's come out fine, and if I don't give decent pressure, then I might pull it up and find I've missed a few spots. So another one, good pressure right there. I like to do a bit of the rubbing. Do not wobble it though when you use it. You don't want the edges. Sometimes I turn it over just to check that it's sufficiently inked. And again, good pressure. I like to do leaves in sets of 3, or if it's a big flower, maybe 5, but odd numbers seems to work well. Okay, so those are the ones I'm going to color with the blends, and I will color those in a moment. Let's finish our stamping. So that's that done. Then I've already gone and used the stitched rectangles to cut a piece of cardstock. Now you can use watercolor paper for this, or I've just used the thick Whisper White. So I've cut that section out. When you place your dies, as you can see, I can cut it with 2 dies in one go, and you can just place them there and just cut through. But I was cutting a lot of these for class, so I used the washi tape to hold them in place to give me an even width between the pieces. So with the one cutting, I get the outline and the inside of the piece. And so if you're wondering what size I did there, it's approximately 6.5 by 10 centimeters is the outer side there. So when you cut that out, you want to try to have an even edge around it when you use the stitched rectangles. And so then that's your front and your inside. And so for the inside, we want to stamp with the Stazon, because we're going to color on that. And we want to stamp it with the flowers, which are here. I just get some scrap paper to put underneath because it's going to go off the edge. So put a bit of scrap paper there. Now, if you haven't used Stazon before, it's a permanent ink. It's great because you can stamp it on any non-porous items. Like I could even stamp it right onto my window sheet and have a design on there. But the other thing too is it dries quickly, so it actually comes with a plastic cover, as it says do not discard. So that is meant to be saved and used all the time. And it does stain your stamps. There is a Stazon cleaner that you can use, but it never cleans it 100%. And it, as I said, it dries quickly, so you don't want to ink this up and then wait a while before you stamp. So you want to stamp fairly quickly. And I think I'll just stamp this slightly different than before. So again, good pressure because you won't get a second chance to stamp this. You could turn your paper over and stamp on that. However, because we've already die cut this, the lines are on one side. So if I were to try to stamp that again, I'm not going to get a very dark image because it dries that quickly. So I want to get another flower, so I'm just going to get that inked up. I like to hold my lid upside down like that, so when I'm stamping I have to close it quickly. I can just pop it right down. So here I think we'll go something like that. So just stylizing it. Put the flowers wherever you want them to be. Okay, and I'm going to do a different background color on here. This also gives you really nice dark black as opposed to the Memento. That's more of a lighter black color. This one gives you a nice quite dark. So I think I will go like maybe about here. There we go. I'm not very good with watercoloring. I'm still getting the hang of it, so it doesn't always come out really nice. Okay, so basically just kind of put them around where you want them to be, and I will have to clean that with my Memento. So it stains it quite dark. It can be clean. We do have the Stazon cleaner for sale, and so you can clean it with that later on. So I'll give that a minute to dry. While I'm doing that, I'm going to stick my window sheet. So I cut the window sheet basically the same size as the frame. So what was that? That was 6.5 by 10 centimeters. And the way to stick that down is double-sided tape. It doesn't work well with liquid tape, so you need to use double-sided when you're trying to stick window sheets down. So I've got a bit of tape here, and I'll just put this window sheet on. Okay, so I just used the double-sided tape around the edges to stick the window sheet down. And if it doesn't line up properly, that's okay. You just can trim off the edge. You just need to make sure that it's got all this inside covered because you don't want anything to come out. So we'll set that piece aside. It's always best to do your window sheet early on because otherwise you get to it later and you can't find it because it's see-through. So this time I thought I would change it up, and I would use the Just Jade to color my background. And I'm using the brand new water painters. The new water painters come in 3 different sizes. So there's a fine tip, a medium tip, and there's this brush tip here. And the cap comes off. You could untwist this to fill it up with water. So you fill that up with water there, which I've already done. And then this one actually has a broad tip. Now, I use this in the class and it's already gotten a bit stained, but that's okay. Always just check by brushing paper to see if it's stained or if the color is still on there, just to check. Now, you don't want to put the water directly onto your stamp pad. Usually, what you can do, and what we did with the old ones, is you squish it a bit, and then you work from what's come out in the cap. Now these newer pads are much tighter and don't squish as easily. So if you need a lot of water to use, I suggest you just take a empty block You don't need to push it on long. Just push it on a bit to get some color on it. And then make sure you've squished this to get the tip wet, but I can see it's already wet. And just put some water in there. Sorry, it's going to make the video move a bit. So put a bit of water in there, and then you can watercolor with that. It actually says push on these pens too, which is quite nice. So you know you got a place that you can push to get the water flowing. So it's better to start with more water, because then you get a lighter look. See how dark that is? But if I add more water to it, it comes out lighter and doesn't stick as much. So let's see how the green's going to look here. So just come off the side. It's getting a bit darker than I want it. That's okay. As I said, I'm still kind of learning this whole watercoloring technique. So you kind of, I think, want to start off the side when you're brushing it. And this is actually quite a dark color. I probably should have gone with something lighter, but live and learn. So just brushing across, just trying to give it a kind of interesting background. And see, the parts I'm using with more water aren't as dark and they don't color it as quickly. So I'm just going back and forth, picking up more color, trying to squish it off. And don't worry if your paper starts to buckle. That's normal for non-watercolor paper. As long as you don't put too much water on it and totally soak it, you should be fine. So I'm just trying to get some of these areas that I haven't already got the green on. And it's just to your taste, so you can do it as light or dark as you want. You could mix other colors. But as you can probably see, depending on how much green I've got, I'm getting different colorations already. Right there I got it quite dark. So you can spend hours trying to get the design you want, or you can just do a bit and just go with the flow. I'm just trying to get it all green. Okay, I think that's probably good enough. So when you're done, just squish it a bit and rub it until the color disappears, until you've got clear coming out. Then you know, even though it looks stained, it's clean. And then you can just simply take the excess off your block on the scrap and then go ahead and wash it. I do have a lovely video explaining how to wash your blocks to get all the little glue off. You can use hand sanitizer to do that. So I'll just set that aside. So there we go. So even though that was one color, depending on how much water I had when I went over it, I get different looks and different colorations. Like I might even decide to put it down that way. I don't know. So I'll put that block away. And you want to do that early on for this card because it needs to have time to dry. So we'll leave that aside at the moment. Make sure my hands are clean. Put the cap on. It's so nice, it has lovely caps. So now I'm going to color my flower. The colors I thought I'd use for this, to match the background, I'm going with the light and dark Just Jade. And then I want it yellows, but I want it to bring in some other colors. So I have light and dark Daffodil Delight, I have light and dark Mango Melody, and I have light and dark Calypso Coral, is it? Yes, Calypso Coral. So those are the colors I'm going to work on that. I might get some cinnamon cider. I'll see about the center. So that's how I'm going to color my flower. And I'll pause the video while I do that. But in the meantime, I'll show you about embossing the words. So I've just got the words here embossed in white. So all you need is a scrap piece of black paper. I always like to use my embossing buddy to make sure that static doesn't stick. We used to sell this at Stampin Up, which we no longer do, but I do believe you can get them elsewhere. It's just a bit of powder that helps to keep the static down on the paper. Otherwise, when you drop the powder onto your paper, it might go everywhere. So using my Versamark, which is a clear sticky ink, you want to ink that up. Now you can't tell unless you look in the light and get some shine whether it's been completely inked. And then just press that somewhere onto the black. I'm going to fussy cut it so it doesn't really matter exactly where I put it. But again, give it good pressure because this one you can't see through. And I'll hold it up to the light. You might be able to see a bit of the shiny there. All right, so that's what I'm after. It's just a kind of a wet ink that allows you to then have the time to put powder over it. So I'm just using the white embossing powder. And I like to do this over a little container to keep it all. I used to just do it over paper and then pour it back in, but this works just as well. Just a pile in one spot, and then I just turn it over, give it a tap, and so there you go. Now if you have any spots that got powder that you don't like, just get a little brush. This is a little makeup brush here, and I just wipe some of those away. But because I'm going to fussy cut this, it doesn't matter about the stray powder that much. So now I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to heat that up and it'll turn shiny, and I'll come back and show you after I've done that and I fussy cut it. And I'll do the same with the stamping. So that's just showing you the powdery look, and I'll come back and show you after I heat it. Okay, so I have heat embossed that, and then I just fussy cut around it. So when you heat it up, it gets all shiny, and it melts that powder into a nice shininess. And then I just use my scissors and cut around the edges, which is called fussy cutting. So I'll set that aside. Then one more thing we need to do is emboss the background paper. So this time around I'm going to use the Bricks and Mortar embossing folder. This one I use the planks, the wooden planks. You can kind of see it there. So I thought I'd do something different. So I'm going to use the 3D Bricks and Mortar. When you use embossing folders, you need to use a embossing die cutting or embossing machine. And then you also need to think which way you're going. So with this one here, I want the bricks to be going that direction. So when I put it in there, I need to make sure I've got my bricks going the direction that I want. But you always put it through with the folded side going through your embossing machine. If you want to be very accurate and you want to make sure your bricks are all straight, the line that's printed on the outside can be used to line up your cardstock. And then when you shut it, when you put it through, the bricks will all be nicely lined up. Okay, so I'm going to emboss that, and then I'll come back and color my flowers. So there it is embossed. And I like the look of white bricks, and as you can see, it looks very straight up there because I lined it up with that line. So you can use the part with the bricks sticking out, or you can use the debossed part. It gives them a bit of a shadow going inward. So pop that aside. And now I will use my blends and I will color these in and then die cut them. Okay, so now I've colored and I've die cut the sunflower. So I went with traditional kind of sunflower colors. The center I ended up using some cinnamon cider along with the Calypso coral and a little bit of the light basic black. So the nice thing with blends is you can use various colors. And in this outer part, I use the Daffodil Delight and the, what is that, Mango Melody, mixed in all around the outside. So some of the lines I did in one color and the other. And then the leaves I have done using the light and the dark Just Jade. So I've colored it all with the light, and then I've just highlighted the darker parts with the dark Just Jade. So that's my flower cut out. So let's put the card together. So I've got the base, and I've embossed my brick wall, so I think I might leave it that way because this part will be covered. No, actually, I think I like that look better. So when you're doing putting something that you've embossed down, just use something strong that will hold it, because with embossing you don't have a nice smooth layer to adhere to. So sometimes I use the liquid glue because it can get into all the little grooves easier than the tear and tape would be able to. And I just do a little X in the middle just to make sure that it's got pressure. Always check which way your card opens before you put it together. Now at this point you might want to put a ribbon on here. I think this was copied from one of the Stampin' Up! Artisans design. So I think they may have actually put a ribbon round here. So you could do that. I opted not to. Then the next thing is you want to put your colored part. Now this is dried and it actually looks a bit lighter now that it's dried. I hit it with the heat gun for a little while just to make sure it's nice and dry. And if you find when you're heating it with the heat gun, if it curls, turn it the other way and it will curl back. And then just keep turning it back and forth. If it's still a bit curled, then you can just stick it under a heavy block to hold it down. So you need to figure out where you want to position that. Don't put it too close because you are going to have a frame coming off the top of it. So you need to stick that down. Again, I'm going to use the liquid glue because of the unevenness that it's sticking down on and the fact that it was wet. If you try to put it down and it's still wet, you might have trouble sticking it down, especially if you opted to use tape. So decide which way round you want it. I'm just thinking, no, I think I do like it the original way. And just give it enough space so you'll be able to stick the other elements on. Give it a bit of pressure, and again, if it's not holding down very well, you can just stick a block on there in the meantime. So the flower is going to be coming, you got to decide which way up. These petals to me suggest that's the base, the bottom part of the flower. It doesn't look very well if they're hanging that way. And so two ways you can do the leaves. You could either stick them on first or stick them on after. You can make that decision. Oh, and sure enough, I made things crooked. Now, if you've got your dimensionals and you've got the little edges there, you can use those solid strips on the edges to stick the next part on. But we do sell foam adhesive strips. They come in a pack with a lot of long strips. That's what I suggest you get for any of your shaker cards because it gives you a better coverage. So they come in these long strips, and just pull it off. It's just like the double-sided tape or the dimensionals. And you just put it just on the outside edge of where your image is. So not on the image, just on the edge, because you've got to remember that shape there was inside of this. So as long as it's just on the edge, it will fit perfectly. Now you want to put the tape here, and I'll show you in a minute why. I did it the other way around when I first did it, which was not very good. So you cut it off and then just butt it right up against the other one that you've just put on there. You don't want to have any gaps. You don't want the inside part to come out. Okay. So this may seem a bit fiddly, but it's so cute when you're done. And I'll grab another piece. Now, I might not use the whole piece, so I will just put down what I think I need. Hopefully you can see this in the video. I'm just going right up to the edge of the part that's been colored. If you have to piece things together, that's fine, as long as they actually cover right up to the edge. So I'm not sure about that one. So, see, I'm just going the other side of that colored part. And butt it right up against the edge. So it all depends on how, what size the elements that you're putting inside your shaker are going to be, with how close you need. Like if I was putting some, you know, powder or sand in there, it might slip out from that corner. So, as you can see, I've gone right outside the stitched edge on all four sides. And then you want to put your elements inside. So you could have a lot if you want it, you know, to be quite full at the bottom. The way I did my card, when it's shaken down, you can't actually see them. It's only when you roll it around that they come out. And I've got different sizes, so sometimes they stick in the plastic, but shake it a bit and they come down. So you want to do it this way, because now they are going to stay within those four walls at the moment. I think that one's probably way too big, but I've got two that I think are going to just be way too big. They won't go anywhere. So that's the thing with you using the silicone gel, you just never know. See, there's a few of them in here that are just really, really big. Those would be good for marbles or something with more space. See, those were just way too fat for this, so I pulled them out. So I could put more in if I had more. Let's see, is this clear? Okay, so just to show you, I pulled that open, and so you can see there are different colors in there. Some are clear. There you go. Some are clear and some aren't. So I could just add that straight in there. And if you'd like the look like some of those are brown, that's fine. So I've just added some more just straight in there, and that's how I got the clear ones. But if you want color, then you need to dye them a bit. So once you have that done, then just peel the tape up off the other side of your strips, adhesive strips. Try not to get the center touching them. And once that's pulled up, all four sides pulled up, then put your adhesive window on. And I can see I did this one a bit crooked, but that's okay. That's the whole handmade element of it. So as long as you did them right on that edge, you should be able to just stick this right over the top. And just stick it all down. So there are some big ones at the bottom that aren't rotating, but that's okay. And so there you go. You got your shaker. If you wobble a bit, some of the stuck ones can get unstuck, but it's okay. I like it that they get stuck there. So once you've got that down, then you need to layer up your elements. Now, because we use this foam, it's actually wider than traditional dimensionals, so we can't just pop this on a dimensional because it won't be sticking up high enough. So you either need to put it on several dimensionals or use a bit of the foam on the base. So I'm going to pop this on first, and I'm going to do just that. I'm going to use a bit of the foam on there. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this corner because I know it's going to stick on that part there and it won't be seen. So using a piece of the foam, it'll give me the right height. And I will stick this up a bit. So I stamped that one a bit too low so you don't actually see it, but that's okay. So that foam there will give it the right height to come up. And then you just pop your leaves in where you want. So with these, I'm going to use a dimensional. I'm actually going to use a strip. Little piece of my dimensional. And so this is not the same height as the rest. So that dimensional isn't quite the same height. So when I slip it in there, it will be lower. Now the other thing too with this card, if your words are too big, you can pop them up somewhere else so they can be seen better. And this guy, I'm just going to put some glue right on top of there because I'm going to slip him under. And just hold them in place for a second. So that'll give me a bit of height as well. And then another piece, another dimensional for my other leaf. I might give it two. So a couple dimensionals on the back of my other leaf, and let's slip that in. Pop it down there. Okay. And don't forget we had these little elements. Now when I was cutting them out, there was another one I cut out and it ripped, but I thought I might be able to use that somewhere. And I think I will put the words elsewhere. So this, just a bit of glue. Now I know there's the little skinny bits and you think, how do you stick that down? But you just need a bit of glue on the fatter parts of the die because the other parts are not going to go anywhere once you have the thicker parts of the die glued down. So I'm just going to pop that. I'm thinking I might mix it up and put this one no, that's fine. So you can give it as much height as you want. And you can just slip it in there. Press down where you got the glue. And then this one here. Few dots on the thicker parts of the die. Some people go overboard with the glue, but as I tell them, nobody's going to take it and try to rip it apart. You know, very unlikely somebody's going to try to pull it apart and say, how did you do this, and rip all the pieces apart. So you don't need a lot of glue, just enough to hold it in place. Okay. If you're having trouble pressing it down, of course, bone folder is really good for doing that. And the other thing would just be simply a block. Put a block on there to give it some pressure. Okay, so this one, I'm thinking I might go with because I don't have as much in that corner, I might actually pop that there. And then I might stick a few bits coming out the bottom. So even though that broke off, I can just snip that broken part and still use it. I'm just wondering if I should, no. So to put it on there, because it's going on to the window sheet, it's best to just put some double-sided tape on it, which I seem to have misplaced. Like that. So best to do the tear and tape if you're going to stick it onto plastic, which is what the window sheet is made out of. And I will just put that here so it kind of gives it a bit of a interest. And then I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue right under there to put it onto the edge. Right there. just to hold that bit down. So I'm changing it up a little bit. And then a bit of glue on that little extra piece that I hadn't cut properly. Tuck it in there. And the same with this top part. So if you have die cuts that don't come out right, don't throw them away. You can always find some use for them. Nobody's gonna know how it's meant to be unless they're a crafter and have those dies. So I believe that's it. So there you go. All done. Design that came from one of the Stampin' Up artisans, and I've changed up, cased it to make it my own. So this was colored with pencils, that was colored with blends, and they all used the Celebrate Sunshine stamp set with the matching dies. And this background was with the wood planks, and this background is with the bricks and mortar background. But they do use window sheets as well. So I don't know which one's your favorite. Tell me in the comments, that would be great. Give me a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any other future videos. And if you would like to look at my blog, papercraftaddiction.blogspot.co.nz, I give measurements and more photos, close-up photos of the projects I've done, and you can see previous projects as well. I will list under this video the names and the product codes for everything, all the Stampin' Up products used in this video. So you can go there to get the information you need. Contact your Stampin' Up demonstrator to order. If you live in New Zealand and don't already have a Stampin' Up demonstrator, I would love to be yours. And you can find me at michellecritchley.stampinup.net. You can order directly from there, send me messages, sign up for my monthly newsletter. And if you live local, you can look into my events calendar if you'd like to come to any classes. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I enjoyed making it and showing you how to do it. Have a good day. Bye.